over to the clerk, who's going to take us through the housekeeping.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. The meeting is being recorded and published online after the meeting. Could all attendees leave their camera on but switch off their microphone when not speaking, but switch on both camera and microphone when you are invited to speak so that this is picked up in the recording. If you wish to speak, please use the raise your hand function or indicate in the meeting chat and I will alert the Chair. I will now do a roll call and would ask that members confirm their attendance when their name is called so that this is clear in the recording and can also be recorded in the minute. Councillor Gregg, Chair.
Present.
June Brown. Councillor Cook.
Present.
Hussein Patwa.
Present.
And we have apologies from Michael Oliphant of Audit Scotland. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Robertson. Today, our Chief Finance Officer, Paul Mitchell, is leaving, so I think it would be a good opportunity from this committee to say our thanks to Paul. So on behalf of the committee, Paul, I'd like to give you our very best wishes for the future, but thank you very much for your professionalism. You've been a very caring and compassionate colleague. Everyone appreciates the wonderful high quality of effort and work that you've put into the IJB and this committee and the work of our partner organisations. So just many thanks, and we do wish you all the best for the future. So thanks, Paul.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you.
As proposal to adjust the agenda, if people are content, I understand that Judith McLennan is joining to provide some context around changes in the delivery plan dashboard metrics, but she needs to be away by 11:30. So that is item 6.2, the quarterly performance report. Could we move 6.2 to just before the governance section, so just before 4.1? Would that be acceptable to the committee? I think that would be, yeah, grand. Got approval there. I may need to be reminded of that adjustment when we get there, but that's agreed. So let's move on to item 1.1. Do members have any declarations of interest or transparency statements? Nope, nothing there. Okay. 2.1 is exempt business. There is none. Item 3.1, we have the minute of the previous meeting of the committee of the 2nd of April. Is the committee content that it's an accurate record of that meeting, or are there any problems with any of the details? Are we agreed? Everybody content? So that minute is approved. Business planner is at 3.2. Any questions on the business planner? There are a couple of items there. There's a delay and a transfer, but I think it's I think it's all straightforward. Content with the business planner? Yep, no questions on the business planner. Grand. So that's all agreed. This is where we could take item 6.2, the quarterly performance report update. So 6.2. Thank you.
Yes, good morning, everyone, and thank you for being so accommodating with regards to changing the agenda around. So I can take us through the report at a high level before passing over to Judith. So this is around the Q4 delivery plan update. The report seeks to provide assurance to the committee in relation to the progress of the delivery plan, and it's recommended that the committee note the information provided within the report and the appendices. The committee should be relatively familiar with the report and how it's set out at this stage. We obviously have the performance dashboard, which shows the high-level metrics, and indeed some accompanying information around the progress of some key priorities across our Year 2 delivery plan. This, of course, covers the last quarter of the previous financial year. So for the next committee, whilst the format will remain the same, they do expect a change in the content aligned with our updated Year 3 delivery plan. A couple of points maybe just to draw particular attention to. You will note in line 4.6 that there are a couple of projects marked as either closed or completed, and the reason for them is outlined within the cover report. The most notable change to this report is in relation to item 4.4 and some updating of metrics that have been made to our delivery plan dashboard. So you will note that there are some changes within there, specifically within relation to mental health learning disability, inpatient special services, and child adolescent mental health services. Nice short name there. And we're delighted to have Judith McLennan along, who is the head of service for this part of the system. And what we've asked you to do is really just to come along and provide the committee with a little bit of additional context as to why these changes have occurred and why they're essentially the most appropriate for monitoring and assurance purposes as well. So I can pass over to Judith just now for a little more information, and then I might sum up at the end. So Judith, would you like to come in, please?
Thank you, and just to echo Callum's thanks for taking us early. The Regional Director of CAMHS is visiting today, and I missed her last visit, so I'd really like to get down there today, so thank you again for that. So just to explain the work that we've been doing with Callum and through Alison MacLeod's team in just ensuring that the metrics related to the hosted specialist mental health services are incorporated in reporting and in the dashboards, because it's become noticeable that whilst Kevin Dawson's community mental health and learning disability services are incorporated in the metrics, there was a gap there. So we're doing some work to improve that gap and close it up. So it is work in progress, but I think we're almost there. But there's been a considerable amount of work done behind the scenes. So thanks to Alison's team for accommodating that. I've just got a few slides to share, and that's really just to explain the range of services that will be included in the dashboards. So what are the specialist mental health and learning disability services? So we're delivered mainly through Royal Cornhill Hospital, which is where you'd normally find me. This would be my second home, but also through the CAMHS building down at Links, Elmwood building, which houses our perinatal and infant mental health services, 2 community rehabilitation units out in Aberdeen City. There are specialist Grampian-wide mental health services, and I'll give you some details about that, and we provide tertiary services to Shetland and Orkney. Within that, we've got about 904 people working for us in the specialist mental health and learning disability services with an annual budget of about £51 million. Last year we came in an overspend of about 4.5%, which equivalent to 2.5 million. So what do we have here in Royal Cornhill Hospital site? I think sometimes people underestimate just the range of services that we do provide here. So just thought for the committee, just as that introduction would explain a little more. So there's 17 inpatient units under the specialist mental health services, and we've got a funded bed base for 227 beds. But as you'll see from the dashboard metrics, we're typically over-occupied and require our 16 surge beds to be in occupation pretty much full time. They range from 4 adult acute admission boards, and they're most likely notable for the ligature reduction work that they've gone through over the past number of years. And the forensic unit, which houses 3 inpatient wards, forensic acute, forensic rehabilitation and intensive psychiatric care unit, and one of the outpatient services in the community, and delivered through HMP Grampian. We've also got 2 older adult mental health acute admission wards and 1 dementia assessment ward on site, 2 learning disability wards, a neuropsychiatry ward. I don't like to be called the acquired brain injury unit, that I've learned recently, the North of Scotland eating disorder inpatient ward, and 2 adult mental health rehabilitation wards. When it comes to that cross Grampian and tertiary services we provide, the CAMS unit, the child and adolescent mental health, we've got an unscheduled care team, liaison psychiatry for both adult and older adult, gender identity clinic, the perinatal and infant mental health services, the eating disorder service, and a psychotherapy service. That's just for City and Shire, because Murray have their own psychotherapy service. And just to distinguish, I guess, which is what we found in other committees, that excludes Kevin's teams, which are the specialist community mental health teams focusing on adult, older adult, learning disability, substance use services, and the primary care mental health services, inclusive of health and social care service delivery. So that's just a short presentation. What Callum might go on to describe within the dashboard, what's still evolving, is really the metrics around our number of delayed discharges, and just notice just how many days these people are delayed, because that's the really key metric here for people with mental health and learning disability services. They're running into the hundreds and thousands rather than the tens and hundreds, so quite considerable difference there for people in our population. The psychological therapies, we have a waiting time standard that we are required to meet. So we're just making sure that we've got all the psychological therapy teams included for Kevin's services and the specialist mental health services. So making sure that we exclude Aberdeenshire and Murray metrics in there. And I think we're just about getting there, the CAMS service and the perinatal and infant mental health services. So that's what you should start to see in the metrics coming through in the dashboard. And that's probably all I've got to say. But happy to pick up on any of that points, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Judith and Callum, for introducing the report. You mentioned that mental health and learning disabilities is a specialism, and yet within that specialisation, we've already seen that there's a wide range of further specialisations, and it would appear also a growing area with those pressures on bed bases and so forth. So thanks very much for the information. Does anyone have any questions for Judith or Callum? June.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Judith, for that presentation of this service that I'm quite familiar with, so that's fine. My question around this is in relation to the performance data that you've got here. I'm not really understanding what we're measuring. You know, so is it outcome for patients? Is it the quality of the care that's been delivered? What is the measure that you're trying to present in this data? And what could that look like? And I suppose some of the quality data may be reported via the clinical and care governance element of the committees, but from a performance perspective, is it about how many people have in emergency detentions, how long they stay in hospital for, that kind of thing? I'm just not getting the full picture, sorry, thanks.
Okay, just to come back in, Chair.
Yeah, so is that a question for you, Judith? Thanks.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And I think that's what's still work in progress, because I think that when we met with Preston Gann on behalf of the delivery plan of what key performance indicators we're measuring, I think across the professional leads and the senior operational managers in mental health, I think we found that we could have added times 10 the key performance indicators that were already there, and were they measurements of what was already there? Probably not, but the ones that we're adding, so psychological therapies, the delays in hospital for patients waiting for onward care provision and accommodation. It said these are patient outcomes, these are patient experience measures, the waiting time standard as it applies to psychological therapies and to CAMS, and just represents really what feels to be in line with some of the other measures at the moment, but I do recognise it's work in progress and there's many more measures we could add.
Okay. Thank you very much. Could I possibly turn to page 156, where there's mention there of complex care and as an element of particularly of early intervention. I'm just wondering how that fits into the work that's underway. There's mention in various places of the GERFE agenda, which is becoming more and more important, and I think that there's a stronger need and desire to link up social care with delivery of healthcare services, and I'm wondering if there is that further integration that's underway with particular relevance to mental health and learning disabilities. So just some further information on that would be useful.
That would be work that the cross-system strategic delivery team, so that's where the professional leads and the senior operational managers come together twice a month, come together fortnightly to have a look at that key strategic elements in complex care is one that bats right across Grampian, and looking to see how that progresses. So there is a part of the delivery plan that has complex care, which Kevin is leading on behalf of the City IJB, and he takes that forward.
Right. Thank you. So will we see further updates at some point for the city through the IJB or elsewhere?
This is my first time at this meeting, so I don't know the routine, but I guess because it's down in the delivery plan, my assumption. But I see Alison's got her hand up. She
Alison.
might save me.
Alison's going to help. Yeah.
No, you were going there, Judith. Absolutely. I mean, we bring the delivery plan updates to this committee on a quarterly basis. So you will see those updates as they come to the committee.
Thank you. See, so there are two hands that are, I think, still up, June and Alison. But otherwise, I think it's a very comprehensive report.
Can I come back in, Chair, please?
Oh, sorry, June. Yes, June.
Yeah, my hand was still up.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't realise that.
No, not at all. I suppose my question is in relation to just following on from the previous discussion that in Judith highlighting key measures, etc. So measures, Judith, like how many patients are waiting to be admitted to hospital, because I know that is a real issue for you. You've maybe holding risk in community environments where patients should be admitted. I'm just wondering if those kind of metrics should be presented here, just so that there's that full understanding of the challenge and the risk that sits within mental health, particularly that acute element of it. Thank you. Sorry, it's just another thing that I thought might be useful.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that's a further conversation, and I guess that's because I'm mindful of the senior leadership team conversation, but trying to keep the dashboard to a readable size, to a kind of specific size, and an agreement that would perhaps be more helpful to have service specific dashboards. And certainly that's something that we're working on in the specialist mental health and learning disability services, as I'm aware the other senior leadership team members are also, so that there could be actually just our own dashboard that could be presented at regular intervals to the committee.
Thank you. Would it be fair to say that it's quite a dynamic environment out there? There's mention there of legislation coming through in autism, learning disability, and neurodiversity. So is it quite a changing landscape that we're experiencing?
there's actually been 24 standards, specification and strategies launched in the last year, 18 months or upcoming, just finished consultations, etc., across the multiple pathways in mental health and learning disability services. So it is a responding time, and trying to make sure to try to see how we measure up. But we are linked in nationally with the Mental Health National Leads Network, just to have a look at how we should prioritise this plethora of strategies, etc., that's come out, focusing particularly with their guidance on the mental health and wellbeing strategy and the core secondary care adult mental health standards is the work of the cross-system strategic delivery team. But service-specific specifications, for example, gender identity, CAMS, eating disorders, neurodiversity, etc., they're all coming out. They're getting focused upon specific services, but across that branch of specialist services, we're focusing on the core mental health and wellbeing standards. And we're participating, we're one of the pilot boards participating in the self-assessment audit tool for both the core mental health standards and the psychological therapy. So we thought we'd embrace that one's coming forward.
Okay. Thank you very much. I imagine that it's quite challenging to keep up to date with policy and legislation and so forth. Callum, did you want to come in on this point, or is it something different?
No, I did, because I think you I think it was to build on, you made a really important point there, Martin, which is that this is a very kind of dynamic and changing environment that we're working in. And I guess because of that changing environment, then the types of metrics that are the most appropriate to be monitoring at a strategic level, they can change and adapt over time as well. So there's some of the changes that Judith described today and some of the other changes that we're going to be working on moving forward, they're really trying to take cognizance of that sort of changing environment. So what we're looking at is the most appropriate. I think there is a challenge, or there is a tension there between what June is describing, which is, you know, just trying to make sure that we're monitoring the right things. There does become a danger that we can monitor absolutely everything, and then it becomes really difficult actually to try and get that kind of full overview. So it is a constant sort of challenge and a bit of a balance about how we do that. I think what Judith's beginning to describe is almost different layers. So what would be the most appropriate high level things for the likes of this committee? What would be the next layer down of maybe more detailed information that would be the most appropriate to look at on, say, a service by service level, for example? These are the types of things that we're kind of constantly trying to work through, basically. But some of those changes, as I mentioned, as and when they come, you know, we'll be sure to highlight them and describe, you know, what the thinking and the reasoning is behind those changes as well.
Okay, thanks. And June, did you want to come back on this?
Thanks. I mean, I think, yeah, this is the Risk Audit and Performance Committee. For me, it's about what are the greatest risks within mental health and learning disability services, and those are about not having capacity and flow to support patients move through it, ensuring they've got the appropriate outcomes. So we have a look at that risk register. We're really clear around that, and I think strategically, as a member of this board and this committee, that's what I really want to understand. It's really important. Thank you.
Yeah, that's an important point. Thanks. Thanks very much. So, Hussein, over to you.
Yep. Thanks very much, Chair. And firstly, and with my apologies, I should have done this at the start, but as the mental health and wellbeing strategy has been explicitly mentioned, could I make a transparency statement in that I am a member of the Diverse Experience Advisory Panel, and we are a named partner in the Mental Health and Wellbeing Strategy Delivery Plan. Secondly, and maybe taking a slightly different angle on the conversation we've just had with regard to the new legislation, I think somebody mentioned there were 24 different things that we were trying to deal with. Really just looking for some assurance that given the pressures on the system, are staff able to deal with any of the training requirements that all of these new legislations might bring? Obviously, slightly different to the reporting metrics that we've just covered, but in terms of that continuous professional development, from a staff perspective, are we confident that we're still able to do that in light of everything else that they have to deal with?
Okay, so who can help with this question? Anyone willing to volunteer?
I can volunteer because I don't think it's be any more tricky for us than it would be for anybody else at this current time. But there's certainly recognition and appreciation from a government level and across Grampian that level of that number, that volume of work that's come out. For example, the Forensic Mental Health Services Independent Review has got 67 recommendations, and the Forensic Service is not a small service. It's probably a kind of medium to large service, but 67 recommendations is a high ask. So within those types of strategies, we need to prioritise what we can do now. What's the highest priority? What can we do now? What do we need to identify can wait till later? There's other recommendations that actually we need to involve our regional network or our national networks. Are we represented there? So breaking them all down within that, but it's no mean feat, and it is challenging, and we're going to have to do it in a risk stratification way. We're not going to be able to bite off absolutely everything, because although a number of these are service specific, you'll have professional leads and operational managers that work across these multiple services, so they need to prioritise their time as well to make sure that things aren't, we're not spread so thin that we're not achieving anything.
Yeah, I think, Chair, what I take some confidence from is the fact that you mentioned that there is government recognition that all these things are coming through the pipeline, but it's staff in the end that have to deliver it, and they have to keep up to date with all of the latest requirements, because this is a very fast changing field, as you mentioned yourself, Chair. And I think as long as there is that recognition from on high, that you can bring all these things, and they're needed, and they're nice to have in some cases, but equally we can't overburden our staff to the point where it becomes unmanageable. And I'm just pleased to hear that there does seem to be that recognition coming through from the people that are setting the agenda. So thank you for that.
Okay. Thank you very much. If there are no further questions, I just wanted to add that yeah, it is a very fast-moving world out there with a lot of growing needs and pressures in different ways. Pressures on healthcare and on social care support services. And yeah, that brings risks, but I think we've got the confidence with the delivery plan and the delivery plan dashboard that we've got a structure. We've got a way of monitoring and managing the demands on services. And yeah, I think it's a good point about the new risks could emerge, but we will have a way of prioritizing and coordinating how we deal with those risks. So I think it's a very good welcome report that gives us the reassurance that we need on delivery. If we're all done with questions, can we agree the recommendations on this report? Committee happy with that? Okay, good. Thank you very much, Judith and Callum, for your interventions there. Thanks very much for the information. And we can move on to, I think we move back in the agenda, back to 4.1. Review of duties and year-end report. 4.1.
Thank you, Chair. I'll introduce this one if that's okay.
Yes, please.
So this is our routine annual report where we look back at the work that the committee has undertaken in the last financial year. So that's April 2023 to March 2024. And in particular, I'll draw attention to paragraphs 4.2 and 4.3 in the report, just to say that when we're comparing last financial year with the previous one, there was a slight difference in terms of the number of meetings that were held. I think we had one cancelled meeting, so it's probably good to bear that in mind when we're looking at the comparisons. But the actual average number of reports that we took to meetings was slightly down in 2023-24 when you compare it to 2022-23. But all the expected reports were submitted, and where relevant, each of the duties and responsibilities that the committee had or have, we had reports against each of these duties where relevant. Some areas, like for national audits or whatever, we only have them coming to the committee as and when they're issued. So we don't always have something against these, but each of our normal areas of business, we discussed reports under each of these headings, and basically the report is suggesting that there is assurance there in relation to the committee performing its duties. So I think I'll leave it at that, and happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Judith. I think it gives a lot of comfort that that the committee has been given that seal of approval, the reassurance that the committee is functioning appropriately and effectively. The retrospective look does give you a sense of déjà vu. It's good to look back at the recent history of the committee, and yeah, and it's very welcome to see that the scrutiny activity is meeting requirements. Any questions at all on 4.1? I think it's very straightforward. Right, are we content to agree the recommendations for 4.1? Yes, grand. Thank you very much, Alison. Onwards to 4.2, the directions update report. Is this for yourself, Alison, again?
And that's myself
if
again.
That's okay,
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So again, this is one of our routine reports. We bring a report on a look back at the directions that have been issued and how we've been dealing with them on a 6-monthly basis. So we last reported in November last year. And in the appendix to the report, you'll note that these are all open directions. Some of the directions have been completed since November, but we've kept them on the report so that you can see the audit trail of that. They were open in November, and now they're completed. So 9%, 9 of the directions, or 21.5%, are completed. 29 are ongoing. That's 69% of the total. 3 or 7% are amber, and there is 1 red. And I think it's fair to say that we are learning lessons all the time with directions. So when we look at the one direction that is red, that's around about the Navigator project, and there was actually a delay to that project starting, which had a knock-on effect, which meant it wasn't complete and an evaluation undertaken within the original timescale. Now, as I say, looking in hindsight, I think what we should have done at the time when we knew there was a delay, we should have come back and asked for an extension to the timescale on the direction. So although it's red, it's red because of the process that we had in place at the time. And as I say, we're learning and amending guidance for report authors all the time. In terms of the 3 amber directions, these are all related to commissioning activity, and we've noted on the appendix there the fact that the services that come under these directions have either been reviewed or are in the process of being reviewed, and we're confident that when we next come to report to the December meeting, that these directions will be closed off. We have had the Chief Officer at her quarterly performance meeting with the Chief Executives of Aberdeen City Council and NHS Grampian, has been tasked with providing even more detail against the directions. So we're looking at how we can do that for the next report. So the next report, hopefully you'll see even more detail there. And just finally, just to mention the data sharing or the data protection impact assessment section on the report. We've added some very high level detail there in terms of the DPIAs that have been submitted and dealt with in the previous 6-month period. But again, we're working on being able to provide more detail there, working with both Aberdeen City Council and NHS Grampian data protection officers to see what kind of recording and tracking process we can put in place for those. So again, hopefully in December we'll have a bit more detail for you on those.
Okay, thank you very much. I think the directions report is very useful, gives us a very factual overview of activities. There's no mention, no evaluation of impacts, but it's a very helpful overview of what's going on. So questions, John.
Thanks, Martin, and thanks, Alison. Yeah, can I just dig a bit more deeply into Navigator, which is the one which is red? So it's due to finish on the end of July this year, but we haven't been able to evaluate whether it works or doesn't. And I remember when we had the paper proposing trying this, it seemed like a good idea at the time. It seemed like a pretty sensible thing to try. So if we haven't been able to evaluate it, will it finish on the 31st of July, or what do we do? Can we extend that so we can actually get some more data to see if it works, or quite where are we?
So it will cease on the 31st of July, and the reason for that, John, is the funding. So the funding will cease at that point. So and I think whilst we don't have an evaluation report yet, I think what is happening within the service is they are aware of some of the issues perhaps with the service maybe not working the way it was originally intended, lessons learned for the next time, etc. So I do believe we are getting a report on the Navigator service at some point in the future. I think Emma, is that right?
Yes, that's correct. I'm just checking the planner because Simon said he would bring back a report. The September meeting, there will be an update report.
Yeah. So I think, whilst there's not an evaluation report to hand at the minute, they're certainly aware of some of the issues and will we'll do a sort of end of project report, and as Emma says, the committee will see that in September, and they'll bring forward proposals for what to do next. But technically, on the 31st of July, that direction will close. So for the next report, you'll see that direction as having been completed, and Simon's report may well propose another service, or not taking it forward or whatever, but that would be subject to if they were going to commission another service, that would mean a report would need to go to IGB with a new direction.
Thanks, and that's helpful. And now you've mentioned that, I'm sure I've read something from Simon somewhere that says this is maybe not working as well as it should, which isn't a formal evaluation report, but is a kind of a gut feel, informal assessment, as it were. So no, thanks for that. That's helpful.
Yeah, these kind of services tend to be sort of monitored as we go. We don't just put them in place and then kind of leave them to it and come back and revisit at the end. So yeah, there's an awareness there.
And it also strikes me that what we're doing right across the piece is innovating. And if you innovate, you're going to try some stuff and it isn't necessarily going to work. And I don't think we should be beating ourselves up over that. Yeah, try something, see if it works. If it does, great. If it doesn't, it was worth a try, as it were.
Great. Yeah, I completely agree. Navigator was somewhat experimental, but potentially out of this experience, there may be alternatives that can be identified to try and find that support and help that Navigator is aiming for. So yeah, you've got to be bold sometimes. So thanks very much. So we'll. Any other questions? No, are we content to agree the recommendations which are on page 31? Yes, grand, recommendations are agreed. Which takes us to 5.1, the unaudited annual accounts, which has Paul Mitchell's name against it. Paul, thank you very much.
Yeah, these are our annual accounts, draft annual accounts. The Q4 monitoring went to the last IJB, detailing our mainstream outturn position, but these are our statutory accounts. I've still got a few figures that I'm waiting for the disclosure notes, particularly around the remuneration packages. They're waiting for that coming from the NHS, but they will be here in time for us submitting the accounts to the external auditor, because I think our deadline for that is the end of June. So we'll get there's a few more tweaks in that we can make to the I've got a couple of suggestions to make to the management commentary, but again, there's no changes to the actual base figures. It'll just be some of the commentary changing from here on. Okay,
thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions on this report? Or shall I start? Could I start by asking about the reducing reserves? So quite a considerable reduction in usable reserves between 23-24 and 24-25. So we've got 9.8 million reserves.
Yep.
Now previously 27. So I mean, any thoughts on that? Is that a safe, acceptable level of usable reserves to have there?
Yeah. Well, the main reduction is obviously the overspend on the mainstream funds at the 10.7 million from last year. So that's where the biggest hit for the reduction in the reserves comes. The other bit of the earmarked reserves, which we get in, we hold them, and we're there for specific purposes.
Yeah, I suppose the concern, the point is that there could be a further overspend in the current year and in the year after. We've got the risk fund there of 2.5 million, which in the scale of things is a relatively modest amount. But these are regarded as quite acceptable quite acceptable levels of comfort and security to have, is it,
Yep.
in the account system?
Yeah, well, there was an overspend last year, and some of that was flowing through into 24-25. But the SLT are working steady on trying to kind of balance this figure. So we are working for a balanced budget going forward. So that's our plan for this year.
Yeah, very, very challenging times. I mean,
Yeah.
it's useful in the narrative to have that background. Huge challenges in the public sector environment. Life expectancy issues, healthcare demands, rising health inequalities, still a huge concern. So so the ability to stretch our resources, always a challenge. Could I also ask, is there ongoing dialogue, and will it strengthen with the City Council and with the NHS, the key funding organisations, and there will be the ongoing discussions. But is there cause to develop that, and I don't know, more regular, more detailed, particularly given the challenging financial situation in 24-25?
Yeah, we do have quarterly review meetings with the chief execs of both organisations and the finance directors there to go through our situation, and obviously they're involved when we prep their MTFF for future years as well.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Anybody got any questions on the accounts? Nope. Content to agree the recommendations? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Paul. That's that report. Agreed. That takes us on to 5.2, the internal audit update report from Jamie. Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you, Chair. So this is our standard report providing the committee with updates on the delivery of our plan, as well as the follow-up of internal audit recommendations. With regards to the actual contents of the report, you'll see from the progress section that they continue to close off audit reviews, and the final review from the previous year is currently being finalised with management, and that should be presented to the next sitting of this committee. With regards to follow-up audit recommendations, as at the 31st of March, there were 3 due, and the report provides updates on these. Thank you and welcome any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Jamie. 5.2, adults with incapacity funds management. There's mention there of training. Is that ongoing training? Is it recurring training activities, or was that time limited?
Thank you, Chair. We've got management on the call who can provide an update on that.
Okay.
Stephen, do you want to come in? Stephen's been overseeing the training, Chair, so he'll give an update.
Okay.
Yeah, I can give an update on the training. So for the last couple of months, we have had adults with incapacity training. 2 coordinators have run training every couple of weeks. So this training has been rolled out to all social work statutory staff. So we're looking at about 180 staff to be trained. So as you can imagine, that takes quite some time. So I think to date, I've probably done about 9 sessions. I think we've got a further 4 to do. So we should be finished that training for the cohort of social work staff potentially by the end of June.
Right. And will that continue in future years? Is that now an established procedure?
Yeah. So sorry, Claire.
Sorry, Stephen. No, I'm interrupting you. I'll let you answer.
That's okay. So what we've decided is that we would train all the existing staff at this moment in time. What we're then going to do, we're appreciative that there's new staff coming into the partnership. Therefore, we're going to incorporate that into the induction process, the core skills, to cover the new staff. But what we're then going to do is create webinars once a year and also refreshers for existing staff for sort of ongoing years.
Grand. That's good to hear. Thank you very much for that. Good. So 5.2, any further questions? Are we content to agree the recommendations? Yes, committee is approving the recommendations. Thank you very much, Jamie. I'm still with Jamie. 5.3 is the internal audit annual report. Jamie.
Thank you, Chair. So public sector internal audit standards require that internal audit produce an annual report, and this should cover the adequacy and effectiveness of the board's framework for governance, risk management and internal control. This report is designed to meet three objectives: to present to the committee and through it the board overall a narrative of the key strategic and thematic findings across the year, an account of the assurance activities and resources of internal audit during the period, and most importantly, a formal opinion on the control framework. For those unfamiliar with audit opinions, these typically fall into two categories. So either reasonable, where the board is operating an effective framework of control, or limited, where the board does not. The report covers the period from the 1st of April 2023 to the 31st of March 2024, and then any work finalised up to the reporting period. As such, taking all that into consideration, I am of the opinion that the board has an adequate and effective framework of governance, risk management and control covering the period, and I can provide reasonable assurance and an unqualified opinion overall. Present my report to committee today and happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions, committee? Nope. Okay, right. Are we happy to agree the recommendations at for 5.3? Yes, that's agreed. Thank you very much, Jamie. Many thanks. We've taken 6.1. No, 6.1 is the primary care improvement plan. So 6.1.
Okay. Hi, I'm Alison Penman. I'm here to present the report today. So the Primary Care Improvement Plan report is a bi-annually update report for noting. The report includes updates for the 6 work streams for the Aberdeen City Health and Social Care Partnership, PCIP. It updates on the improvement work that continues with these work streams. It also includes information and detail around about the review of PCIP. So the review of PCIP is one of the outputs from the GP Visioning programme, and it's a pan-Grampian approach. A project group has been set up for which I'm the lead for that. We have an SRO, deputy SRO, input from our finance colleagues, practice input from practice managers, GP leads and health and social care partnership leads and managers in the group. It is in its early days. We've had 3 meetings thus far, and we've set up a short life working group to look at the information and data that we need to collate to form and underpin the review of PCIP. And the work and updates from this project group will be fed up the way to the GP Visioning programme board for their recommendations on any outputs that we have come up with. In this report, we also identify the risks for the PCIP, for the city partnership, being finance. Our finance allocation hasn't been confirmed as yet for our tranche 2 for the financial year 23-24, and we still await confirmation of our allocation for financial year 24-25. We have had an indication from Scottish Government that there wouldn't be an increase in our allocation. So hence the reason we're doing a review as part of this to mitigate. We're forecasting based on last financial year's allocation. So we're mitigating that and looking at good practice across the partnerships, sharing good practice, and also trying to celebrate the good work that's been done as well. So it's a good piece of work. And recruitment would be our other risk, although it would be fair to say that for our FCP, MSK physiotherapists, since this report was written, we've been fortunate in recruiting 3 full-time positions. So that will be of a benefit to the allocations across the city practices. And that is an outline of the report. Thank you very much. And any questions?
Thank you very much, Alison. So yeah, you just mentioned 3 additional physiotherapists.
Yes,
that will ease pressure on GP surgeries. Is that
that's
the
correct.
expectation?
That's the
Yeah.
expectation. So they would start in September, sort of early autumn time. You know, they would be available to take up their posts. So the allocations will be reviewed, which they are continually, and presented to our local PSIP programme board. And
Okay.
we will agree, it'll be agreed. There is a LMC representation at that programme board meeting. We've got a GP lead. So once that's been agreed, then it will be confirmed with the practices.
Okay, that's really good news. And kind of on a similar theme, there's mention for pharmacotherapy that the number of specialist practitioners need to double in number at 4.2.2.
Yes.
So that's an identified need for development. Is that right?
That's correct, yes. That has always been the thought around pharmacotherapy, and that's what this review will tease out and potentially come to a conclusion, if nothing else. So that's a positive thing as well for the review.
Yeah, I think there's a real value in this review in that it's identifying areas of good practice where there is space to develop, where there are opportunities, and another one is the community-based treatment and care, where there's that devolution to the localities, which is so important. It would be good to see some acceleration going on there, but it's going well. So I think we're seeing the benefits of the PSIP on the ground.
In terms of the hubs that you just referred to, their councillor and chair, we have now got 9 across the city, which is great. And the uptake is really good. It's about 90% uptake. You'll always have, and we're continually looking at things like, you know, why do patients DNA, or, you know, all of those good operational things. So
Yeah.
we're always trying to improve.
Yeah, I think that's really positive, and I imagine that the community link workers will connect up with children's social care services, the family support model, and so forth, to provide that more integrated levels of social care and healthcare. Is that right?
At the moment, the referrals are practice. You know, they're generated by their practices. So it depends, you know, what comes, but it all depends. It all unfolds a bit when they do have their consultation with the link worker. It's not always the situation that they want to discuss that has been referred. It sort of teases out.
Well, I think that's just the value of the link worker, that you get more into the depths of the individual's situation and the cases. So that's all really positive. Thank you very much. June.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Alison, for the paper. I really just want to highlight the fantastic work that's happening in the vaccination centre in relation to prevention and looking across the many different areas and aspects of health, and the work that they're doing, Dementia Week, Learning Disability Week. I mean, there's been a variety of work done by them, and I think they really need to be acknowledged and recognised for that. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much. And John.
Thanks, Martin, and thanks for that presentation. Apologies if you've already touched on this, Alison, but as you started to speak, there's a guy outside with a hedge trimmer, so having a few noise problems. Yeah, it was just on the new program board relating to the GP visioning exercise. What do we got a time scale for when that is going to be up and running?
So that is up. The new program board has been put in place. So the first meeting was a couple of weeks ago, and all the leads for the outputs, the strategic objectives from the visioning program thus far, sit on that board. So we all feed in, and we will be doing regular reports to the program board. So that's in place. So we've got all our ducks in a row.
Great, thanks for that.
Great, really positive. Thank you very much. If there are no more questions, is the committee content with the recommendations? Page 128, everybody okay with that? So we're agreeing the recommendations there. There's 7.1, there's no exempt confidential business. So, and the date of the next meeting is the 10th of September. So colleagues, that brings us to the end of the meeting. Thank you all very much for your presence and your contributions. And I wish you all the best for the rest of the day and look forward to seeing you again in due course. Many thanks. All the best now.
Thanks,
Bye now.
Thanks, cheerio.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.